All right, you see the program this morning on ITV, and it's now time for our first discussion. We shall be going straight to the first issue we are looking at this morning. Of course, we told you that we have about less than 16 days or 15 days to the general election, the presidential election, and the National Assembly election for the House of Representatives and the Senate. And then we have joining us via the online platform, that's through VMix platform, the publicity secretary of the Mission Rescue Mission Party. He is Prince Chinedu. He will be joining us anytime, so we shall be looking at preparation. Okay, there you have. A very good morning to you, comrade.
If you good morning.
Yes, we understand that your party is fully ready for the election. Please, can you tell us what are some of your observations going forward on the various campaigns? I know we've not seen much of your party on the field doing what other parties have been doing so far.
My name again, Prince Chinedu. Let me remind you that I am now the National Western Officer of my party. I am a national publicity secretary. In any case, the person asked familiar to me, and I was able to provide answers to them. Once again, thank you for inviting me. Yes, my party has been campaigning. In recent times, the majority of this campaign, because of the insecurity in the country, have not followed the old pattern. Nigerians now have found new ways of doing old things, and since my party has taken advantage of that, my presidential candidates and members of the party have been campaigning across the country. I, for one, is candidate of the party for that office in 2020, and I've been in the field. Even though with lots of challenges, like I said to you, one of the issues we need to contend with now is the issue of insecurity, the price scarcity, the scarcity of the naira, which makes logistics movement a bit difficult. These are the issues at the moment. Otherwise, the campaigns are going as much as possible. Thank you.
Inside, but INEC just did its first, what's it called? The mock accreditation, just to test run the facility that will be used for the major election. What's your assessment? How ready do you think INEC is in terms of the beavers that will be deployed for this election?
For once, INEC had continued to follow its standard operational procedures and timetables and programs. In the last few years, INEC under Mahmood had done so well in terms of working with party leaders and staying sometimes a step ahead of their plans. And by my own calculation, INEC is fully prepared for this election. At every point in time, they've met with party leaders and put party leaders on the real track of what they're doing. And I think for now, I don't have any reason to believe that INEC is not ready. So far, so good. All that they've done, they've shown some level of preparedness. Like you said, they started test running some of the equipment, and so I'm satisfied. And party leaders, I can tell you, no party from my own perspective is worried about INEC. The only concern, like I said, is the few concerns that we have now, particularly of insecurity, particularly of the fuel scarcity in some areas, even though in Abuja is gradually going down. But of course, the scarcity of funds is also a challenge. Apart from that, from the point of INEC, I feel that INEC is ready for this election.
If this scarcity of funds is not being addressed, it's going to affect in terms of making payment to those who are providing the services, for either making full payment or partial payment due to the withdrawal limits that was set by the CBN, and you just raised that issue. But do you think is a problem, or how do you think this issue of scarcity of funds is affecting the preparation for this election, especially for political parties and INEC as a stakeholder?
I don't think that to a great extent, is affected because of what we're already used to. The average Nigerian likes to carry naira, but at least I think that all we're just all we just need to do is to adjust to the changes. Uh, uh, I, for one, I'm supposed to. I told you I'm supposed to travel today. Before now, I would have been thinking about the kind of money I need to have in my pocket. But of course, what we just need to do is to adjust the policy, so that you don't get me wrong, the design naira, the cashless society is for me the way forward for the country, so that we begin to benefit from the advantage of such policies. Uh, it will affect it because some of us are already used to carrying cash, but not to the extent that it will affect the election completely. I also think that one of the best things this government had done is to even make cash a bit scarce at this point of time, when we know that the traditional politicians are used to buying the will of the people with money. So with this kind of policy, I'm sure that we might find election that will turn up candidates that people actually want to vote. As I guessed, what we used to have in the past, where one man packs £1 billion in a bullion van and goes to the polling unit and buy votes. So the less money we have in the system, particularly at this point in time for me, the better for us. All I just ask Nigerians to do is to adjust, deploy other methods of transfer, do cash transfer, use the POS and all that. And I think it's just a case of a cultural change, but we can adapt to the changes, and I think we can.
But the INEC also is exercising fear over this scarcity.
INEC is a formal organization. I don't expect that INEC pay people cash. What they do is they need to do transfers. Yes, like I said, when you have a change, is a function of change management. People usually are used to what they are used to. Change is always seen with fear, concern, and suspicion. But of course, change is sacrosanct. Whether we like it or not, things will always change. And I think this is a change Nigerians should really adopt, without disregarding the inconvenience. And for me, those inconveniences will just be momentary. I'm sure we're a few days to the election. Between now and the election time, people will begin to adjust to, But I need to appeal to banks to, as much as possible, make this money accessible. I'm not sure that central bank would be uh, very insensitive to have come up with a policy without providing the gaps. But I think that what has played out is some sabotage of some banks. Of course, it's reported in some media that some banks are holding these naira notes. All I think we need to do is to appeal to relevant banks and financial institutions to do what they need to do in terms of making sure that people have access to the much money they've approved that they need to give. At the beginning of the day, I think they had said withdrawal would be as much as 100,000. But I'm sure that if the banks give even as much as 100,000 to everyone, 100,000 is so much money for anybody who wants to do any legitimate business.
Is not so much money, Mr. Chinedu, and you repeatedly said Nigerians should adjust. Some Nigerians will have to travel to their state for this election. There is high cost of transport fare. Airfare is not even smiling. So when you're talking about adjustments, how do you mean that Nigerians should adjust? And we are looking at the deadline in 2 days' time. Do you see us achieving that?
Like I said, it's a function of change management. People adjust, adjusting from what you're used to and the new thing in town. I agree. Cost of transportation is going high, but we need to separate the cost of transportation and access to money. I believe that most of the organized transport companies, for those who shuttle from one state to the other, are so organized that I'm sure that they can do transfers. The ones I'm sure that will bother people is the issue of where you need to pay 1,000 or 2,000 to shuttle from one short distance to the other. And I think, and which is why I said to you, if bank stay in line with what we have agreed to do, to make sure people have as little as 100,000 a week, a day, I'm sure that that money will be sufficient for anybody who wants to go anywhere. Then if it is airfare that you want to do, if you have to pay as much as 50, 75,000, it's some transaction you need to do by cash transfer. I for once, I told you I'm traveling this morning. I didn't have to pay cash. I transferred. And I think, yes,
for the elites, for people in our category, maybe it might not be as difficult for maybe people who are in the rural setting. But I can tell you, those rural settings don't need as much as 10,000, 20,000 naira to have their transaction. So, which is why I think that if the banks can make such funds available to the rural dwellers, I can tell you that this we have nothing to worry about. The persons hyping this scarcity are those who need billions of naira to buy votes. I can tell you, yes, we can see clearly if you see the queue or at the banks for people queuing up trying to have access to this money, including me yesterday. I think I also was part of it. But it's once the banks are willing to make people have this money and make them as quickly as possible, I can tell you this is something we can easily adjust to. I agree. You can see the sufferings, but the hype, I can tell you, is more of politicians who want to have access to so much money than normal.
What Julius was trying to say here is that some persons might be disenfranchised in the sense that if you are not being able to travel to where you actually did your registration, if you look at how this permanent voters card thing has been going, most persons have to travel far to go and pick their PVCs. And although some persons may find it so easy to do transfer, probably transfer from where you actually registered to come back to your present location, but some persons who were not able to do that may need to travel back, especially during the governorship elections. We know so many persons who prefer to go and vote in their states, or maybe in their local areas where they actually did the first registration. But aside that, let's look at insecurity. Police, the Nigerian police, who is in charge of internal security, have assured us severally that they are going to be watertight security during this election. And you raised that concern earlier on as part of the issues that you think they should be put in place before the election. We've seen so much redeployment. Yesterday there was the redeployment of DIGs, AIGs, and some CPs just for this election's sake. Give us your take on the readiness of various security agencies as far as the election is concerned.
Yeah, the issue of insecurity, I raised it earlier, like you also pointed out. Over time, you hear cases of we're planning, we're doing what we're doing, we need to do. In some isolated elections in the past, you would have seen where police deployed as much as 35,000 police. The challenge with this one is going to be a national election where police needs to be in every part of the country. I have a reason to believe that police is doing the much they can, but what we're worried about is the pockets of action of the men of the underworld, bandits, all sort of activities that border on our insecurity. I think that the police, yes, they've assured us of their readiness, need to put their feet on the ground to ensure that these things are nipped in the bud. Because of course, when people get scared, like what's going on in Imo State, where my state is now, every day you hear of attacks here and there. The consequences that people might be scared to come out even on the election day. But from experience, you notice that there's this calm. Don't forget, because usually you have the borders closed. The people don't transit from one place to the other, apart from maybe areas where you need to walk to cast your vote. My thinking is that maybe with that kind of scenario, we will have a more secured election. Majority of the times in the past, you will have this kind of pre-election hype of insecurity, and you find that on the election day, everywhere is calm. So I want to believe that what the security agencies need to do is to put a little bit feet on the ground to make sure that people have the confidence, build the confidence of hoping that everyone will be secure to come out, have their vote casted. Security is something that you have all over the world, but of course, our own have been heightened in the last few years. But going into this election, my appeal to Nigerians is that Nigerians are the ones who are the ones that involve themselves in this kind of level of insecurity and attack. And they operate from homes. They operate from villages. They have brothers and sisters. I think that for once we might need to talk to ourselves, the traditional rulers, the religious bodies, everyone needs to help the security this time around, not necessarily looking at it from them, their perspective alone, to rather have all hands on deck to ensure that we talk to ourselves, knowing that this is a decision time for Nigeria. With the pains of the last few years, I think the average Nigerian needs to know that this is the only opportunity we need to take our own fate in our own hands and make this country calm at least once, make the right choices, vote for those who we think will take us out of the woods. So for me, it's a case of not just relying it on the hands of the security agencies, but to have a multi approach to it where the citizens, where the traditional institutions, where the religious bodies join hands to talk to their people to calm down so that we can have a successful election.
You go, Prince Chinedu. I know that your party might not be found wanting in this next question I'm about to ask you, the issue of manifestos. We've seen politicians leave issue base and look at the way of attacking each other's comments that Nigerians are now seeing as comedy when it comes to campaigns, ongoing campaigns between some political parties. I don't know. Are we shifting from the real essence of what a campaign should be? Or should we be looking at people making jests of themselves through utterances that Nigerians are now catching in to make comedy shows with?
My brother, I totally agree with you. But of course, if you notice that drama is usually between these two political parties, the one coin of different faces, the twin that have put themselves together, which is the APC and the PDP. They're the only ones in this drama. The other political parties are busy going around talking to Nigerians of how they want to get the country out of this wood. And it's really unfortunate. It is because they lack the capacity to present to Nigerians what the Nigerians expect to hear of them. That's why you find them, when a man does not have what to say, he jokes, he dances. What the PDP and the APC have done in the last few weeks and months of campaign is to attack themselves because they don't have what to offer to Nigerians. But I can tell you, the other political parties, mine in particular, been going around telling Nigerians what we need to do with insecurity, what we need to do with our economy, what we need to do with our education. Under this government, you saw ASU was on strike for 8 months. And of course, I can tell you, even in some schools, they've not resumed. And they're not talking about it. They're not talking about how our country has become the capital, the poverty capital of the world. They are just telling themselves, can see today is PDP attacking APC, the other way APC attacking. That's what they do. So, and unfortunately, this is not what policy should be. Manifesto means what is it that you have to do in all sectors? What is your foreign policy? What is your plan for insecurity? What is your plan for education? How do you take Nigerians out of poverty? This is the kind of things Nigerians want to hear. But unfortunately, these guys don't have anything. So, and I think it's been our campaign to Nigerians. Don't let us repeat the same mistakes over and over again, because Ensign will say that it's only a madman that does the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. This, for me, the time when Nigerians need to jettison these two political parties and look for new people with fresh ideas to take us out of the wood. Because when we go to the market to buy, we don't buy from the perspective of our ethnicity, our religion. We buy from, fuel is 1 million naira. The same thing I buy is what the Hausa man, the Yoruba man, the Igbo man will buy. So we should emphasize those issues and sentiments that PDP and APC throw on us to look for competent men and women with character, with capacity to take us out of the woods. For me, that's the kind of things Nigerians should bother themselves out. Because the way the country is now, I think we're at the brink where if we don't do what we need to do, we might find ourselves disappearing as a country.
So much for your time, Prince Chinedu. So we'll allow you to catch your flights this morning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time you've had with me, and thank you for inviting me. God bless.